Hey guys, what is up? Kid here of Burn One with the Shadowverse Evolved channel, as always bringing you another deck profile, this time on Sanguine Abyss for Paragons of the Colosseum. This is a deck where if you like to tempt fate and push as hard as you can, this is a really fun aggro deck where you have to just, hurt yourself a bunch in order to hurt your opponent a lot more. So let's just get into the video and I'll break it down for you. Alright, so here's the deck itself. This is kind of what I've been messing around with, though this isn't necessarily the deck I want to be playing. I do have a lot of fun playing this on the side. So obviously we're in Sanguine. One of the best one drops is Ambling Wraith. It activates Sanguine for us for 1 play point while also damaging 1 damage to our opponent. It's aggressively statted for a 1 drop, a 2/1 instead of like a 1/2, which is good. It works very well as well with Disciple of Lust, which kind of does the same thing, and then you get some extra damage if you're able to swing in with this card after it lives. What's cool about these two cards, which makes like this a little bit more consistent overall, is that Skeleton Fighter in this deck is essentially a 1-drop 3/3 like in the entire time you're playing this deck. So it's nice to have like an overstatted guy. So a lot of play patterns you want to do is you play a 1-drop on 1, turn 2 you want to play something that will damage you plus a Skeleton Fighter, usually something like turn 1 Disciple of Lust, turn 2 Ambling Wraith plus Skeleton Fighter to generate the 3/3, creating a pretty aggressively wide board early on that if your opponent doesn't have a lot of cards to just start pinging off some of your weak followers that are going to be swinging in for like 2 damage a turn, it can get out of control very quickly, and it kind of forces your opponent to respect your board more and have to play the control game plan as soon as they sit down against you. I like this lineup of one cost followers because it's just enough that if you open up the like perfect hand, you gotta go kind of wide and be kind of aggressive, but also you can always skip turn 1 and do a play where you do like the original very strong turn 2 plays of Ambling Wraith into Skeleton Fighter, things like that. Or even if you like Disciple of Lust on 1, you could swing in immediately on turn 2, activate the Sanguine, and so forth, get the 3/3 Skeleton Fighter, and if you have 2 of them in your hand, you get 2 3/3s on turn 2. Is pretty busted. Wings of Lust here is a activator for our Sanguine package stuff, as well as being a combo piece for I'm forgetting her name. Was it Valnyric? Yeah, Valnyric, to go ahead and do extra damage on top of being a somewhat consistency tool, because a lot of times you will be picking to remove one of your opponent's followers, and also picking the draw discard to filter your hand and hopefully set up for later turns if you're looking for key pieces later on. It's a very strong card. Once you start playing with Wings of Lust a lot more, you'll feel how strong this is, and it's also once again an activator for all your Sanguine stuff for only 1 play point. One of the best inclusions in the whole Sanguine package, at least in the newest set for BPO6, is Antelope Pelt Warrior. This card is insane. It's our Latham, essentially, like sword, but it doesn't hurt us immediately. But if our opponent ignores it, when it goes back to our turn, it now not only gets to swing in for 3, it activates Sanguine immediately for us, because at the start of our main phase, it deals 1 damage to us. And then that means we can start swinging in on turn 3 and later. With this card activating Sanguine for us, we can get in some of our storms, activate all the good Sanguine stuff, while just having a really good body on the board. When we don't have to spend extra play points to activate and get the bonuses that Sanguine provides us. Dominion Punk Devil is an amazing card. What's nice about this card too with Wings of Lust is you can give it rush. So if you need to remove something that's really big, a big ward or something like that, you can give this follower Bane by taking 2 damage or subtracting 2 from your leader's life total, and then give this Bane, use Wings of Lust to give this rush, and then run this in to get rid of the big annoying thing. Otherwise, like on turn, when your opponent's going to turn 4, if they're going second, turn 3 Evo, I really like this card when they get 3 to play right before 3 play points and giving it Bane, because it makes it awkward for things like their 4-cost Evos running into this to remove it, especially when it's one of the only followers on the board that may possibly be engaged at the time. It just really depends on like how the match is going. It forces them to have an answer for it that doesn't require them to swing into it, which is nice. So things like decks against sword, this is a really great control tool in that sense. Same thing with any like board-based follower deck. Valnyric in here, Omen of Lust, it's essentially like a 2-drop, deal 3 damage, storm damage to our opponent, because a strike effect goes off. They have the opportunity, obviously, to snipe it away or something like this. And we have that extra bonus that randomly this card can, in the Magical Christmas Dreamland, it'll be a 4/4 if you happen to be at 7 defense exactly. Card is really good at poking in extra damage early on, because a lot of times people are going to be spending their angelic snipes on turns 1 and 2 just to like remove followers on the board, and then suddenly this comes out and has Storm and swinging in for damage immediately. It's a very powerful tempo-y card in that sense. Obviously, we are, we're gas all the way. We need to finish the game as soon as possible. Razor Claw provides us really great benefits, not only activating Sanguine for us, but we get to do direct damage to our opponent, or if we need to also deal damage to a follower to get like a ward follower out of the way, this is a very great way to do that if we already have a board built up. If you've been playing with Razor Claw, you know how great of a card this is. One of the new great, amazing pieces that was provided for Sanguine is Aragavi the Berserker. This card is insane. A lot of times it is just going to be coming out, dealing 3 damage to our opponent on curve, especially when you like Antelope Pelt Warrior doesn't get answered, you get pinged 1. Play this, you get to do 3 damage to their face, and then 3 damage with Antelope Pelt Warrior on turn 3. You're already pushing 6 damage. That doesn't include any other damage that you got prior to on turn 1, for example, or if anything lives past that. And then late game, this is a very powerful card as well, because it comes down for 8 play points. So you pay 3, then you use the fanfare effect, pay 5. You deal 5 damage to each other follower on the field. So once you swing in with your own followers, you play this down to kind of clear out the board, essentially, and any stragglers left. And this becomes a 6/6 with Storm. And then if Sanguine is activated for you, it most likely will be. It'll be doing 9 damage that turn for one card coming on the board. So if you make it to turn 8, this is kind of how we close our games out, because doing 9 damage off of 1 card is pretty insane. Other than that, at any time you have Sanguine activated, you can freely play this out, even not for the Storm, because you technically get somewhat of a Storm going on with the whole if Sanguine's activated for you, you can deal 3 damage to an enemy leader or enemy follower at your end phase. Bad B Kappa is once again another really powerful card for this deck. This is such a tempo-y aggro deck that almost every effect here is really good for us. That's why I really like this card in this list. If we already have a board built up, this coming down gives us an extra +1/+1 somewhere, not only making it strong, dealing more damage, but also making it harder for our opponent to really answer that card by giving it 1 more health. We can heal too when we ping ourselves too many times and we're getting into the later game. We just need to live a little bit longer. We need a couple extra points of health to make sure we don't lose to 1 swing, so we can get to our next turn. This heals too. And then if our hand is breaking really bad, we can look at the top 3 cards of our deck, rearrange them, or put any of them on the bottom to hopefully draw into the correct card. And the evil side does everything we want this card to do for a lot of matchups. If we have specific followers we need to answer, we can force engage a bunch of enemy followers, though that is like the least used option of the bunch. The 2 main options here is deal 2 damage to each enemy leader, or if you have lethal off the top, if you evo this and say get a Razor Claw, you can use this to evo, put the Razor Claw into your EX area, then use the Razor Claw to finish the game instead. Otherwise, a lot of times you will be doing the deal 2 damage to each enemy leader just to out-tempo our opponent. And the 4/5 on the board is really annoying to deal with. Playful Necromancer is one of the best aggressive cards that is also a control tool in a way. We play 3 of the Evo as well, of 4/4. So a lot of times we can use the 4/4 to get boards out of the way, swing in, kind of control the board if we want. Otherwise, you can leave the standing a lot of times, though I think you just kind of lose to Surefire Bolt very often. Hopefully, you put enough pressure early on that they don't really have the Surefire in hand to answer this if you decide to not swing this in at any point before going to your next turn. Otherwise, you get 3 ghost tokens to either clean up the board or push 3 face damage, which is really nice. It's really annoying for your opponent to deal with because they don't want to spend removal on ghosts because they were going to remove themselves at the end of turn anyway, so it makes it really awkward and non-beneficial for them to really push the damage that way. Cerberus, as a 2 of here, we don't really see this card too often or don't want to see it too often. Usually it gets played more often when you're going second because you can curve it out on 5 into one of the Evos, which becomes a 5/5. But the big thing is we get the Mimi and Coco tokens. Once again, we get to add some removal. Also, while doing like a double pump somewhere on a Storm, maybe it's Valnric, we can double pump so it swings in for like 7+ damage. That's a really cute turn as well. It's just the extra boost in damage plus like slight removal is really nice for this card in the list, obviously. Dark General is one of the other amazing cards of the list. On turn 6, you can raise recall Dark General for 8 storm damage, essentially. We don't play the full 3 of Sweep package because sometimes I think it is awkward to weave this in depending on like turn 4. The only time I feel like this is really good on 4 is when you already have an activator on board that happens naturally. So like it's Disciple of Lusts on the board or Antelope Pelt Warriors on the board, automatically giving you Sanguine, so you can curve this on 4. Otherwise, you got to combo it with something else. So it's usually coming on turns 5 and later a lot of the time. But the main way we finish games out before the game goes too long, because we kind of want to avoid going anywhere past turn 6. Jerry here comes in. We go ahead and deal the 3 damage to the board and 3 damage to the leader. But if we Evo, we do 5 instead, because this deck basically goes down to 0 cards in hand very often when we start getting to the Jerry turns. Because we don't have a lot of draw power, we actually have ways to like discard more cards in our hand because of Wings of Lust having the draw ditch effect. We can get bonuses that way, but like basically using this card, ditching it to get another card to add more consistency to the deck also shrinks our hand size by 1 every time we use one, which means Jerry's secondary effect is alive more often to close out games that way, which is great. Watching people just kind of lose to like you going to Jerry, Evo, swing, remove something, this restands. This deals 5 to our opponent leader, and then any extra burns that we got in during that turn too feel great. There are a lot of times too where you might even Evo Jerry and not even swing in, and then the effect happens and it closes out the game for you, because there's a lot of times where your opponent's straggling there with 5 or less health in life total, because you're pushing so much pressure early that once you hit turn 6 and get the Evo, it kind of closes out the game for you. This deck is a lot of fun if you're looking for a hyper aggressive, all in, faces the place type of deck. You want to play Face Hunter from Hearthstone, this is the deck for you. The only issue is you're also kind of in there with Shaman taking damage every turn to activate all these bonus effects that are really, really powerful for you. But yeah, that is the deck itself. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this deck profile. Take this to locals, smash some faces in. Let me know about how you are ending people's turns, their lives on turns 5 and 6 very consistently. This deck is a lot of fun. Obviously too, I don't think it's the most powerful deck in the meta, because this is definitely a meta where every life point kind of matters, but you're trading life here for a quicker game, which means either you lose the game quicker or your opponent loses the game quicker. It just kind of depends on what the matchup is like. With that being said, guys, let me know what you guys are doing with Sanguine Abyss. Do you like the whole aggro stuff, or are you doing some kind of other package where you're playing more controlly for the Argovri Berserker, whatever his name is, to close out games that way? Let me know what you're doing with Sanguine Abyss. It's a really interesting deck archetype, just because it's one of the few things where you're hurting yourself to get bonus effects, so you're like shortening your own life span essentially to end your opponent sooner before you do. I feel like it's just a suicidal deck of clash. You're just suicideing yourself to just try to win the game, which is a lot of fun in a weird way to sequence things. With that being said, guys, I hopefully see you in the next video. Later, everyone.